Hello, everyone, and welcome to the I Love Kidmin podcast, the place where you and your church take the next steps in your kids' ministry journey. We know you love Kidmin, and we want to give you the tools to succeed. Now, your hosts, Ryan Frank and Corey Jones.
Hey, welcome to episode number 3 of the I Love Kidmin podcast. What's up, Corey?
Not too much. What's up with you, Ryan?
Hey, we made it to number 3.
We're here.
Yeah, we're here. Coffee in hand, earbuds in our ears, and we got a good podcast lined up for you all. So thanks for being with us today. Super grateful for the I Love Kidmin Facebook group and just tracking the steps that you're taking in your ministry. So bravo, keep up the great work. I know ministry is not always easy. There are hurdles and bumps along the way, but just love this community and the support we have for one another. And so thanks for your support of the podcast early on. Hey, and this week especially, I'm super excited to see your posts and the conversations after listening to this episode. So when you listen to this episode, be sure to jump over to the I Love Kidmin Facebook group and look for the posts of following up episode 3 of the I Love Kidmin podcast and jump in on the conversation.
Oh, yeah. There's a story that caught our eye in the I Love Kidmin group, and we just had to dive in and learn more and share it with you. But before we turn things over to this week's expert guide, Ryan, who is making the podcast possible this week?
Yeah, so again, we're new in the podcast, and our goal is to have a sponsor of the podcast every week because we want to introduce you to, there are so many great resources out there, resource providers, ministries that make great partners to people like you. And so, hey, our podcast partner this week is Kidmin Nation MegaCon. There are a lot of great conferences out there. Corey and I were together at the Orange Conference a month back or so, and we all get around, and we know there are some great places you can go to get training, but we're kind of excited about MegaCon, actually a lot excited about MegaCon. This is our conference that we do October 1st, 2nd, 3rd in Nashville, Tennessee. And Corey, no, you're going to be there again. Nicole's going to be there. We're looking forward to a great conference. Now's the time to get your tickets. The prices do go up soon. They go up every month. And so if you've considered a conference, you really need to check out kidminnation.com and learn more about MegaCon. It's going to be a great 3 days. Corey, we've got a great lineup of keynote speakers and worship and deep dives, which are like breakouts where you can get into smaller groups and learn, fuel ups. A ton of resource providers are going to be there. And I think we're going to have a full house. It's going to be a full house, Corey. So kidminnation.com, MegaCon. Thank you for partnering today's podcast. All right. Hey, this weekend, favorite things. Corey and I want to introduce you to a few of our favorite things. Corey, one of my favorite things is the Parent Q app from Orange. It is a great app. Now listen, if you have kids at home of your own, you've got to get the Parent Q app. So Parent and then CUE. There's some great resources on there. But I'm telling you, one of the biggest things that I like about the app, Corey, is when I launch it, I guess I like it and I don't like it, okay? What I don't like about it, yeah, when I look at it, it tells me how many weeks I have with each of my girls until they move on. So when I look at Lucy, it says 217 weeks until she moves on. London, 425 weeks until she moves on. Lily, 633 weeks until she moves on. I'm telling you, as a parent, it is a great reminder that I've got to make the most of every moment. And then there's just some great resources to help parents. So that's one of my favorite things this week, Corey. What about you?
I think for me, I wanted to share from Psalm. The word Selah or Selah, depending upon how you say it, it's used 74 times. And one thing I think is intriguing about it is like the true meaning of the word is not necessarily known. There's just different interpretations of it. But most people say it means to pause and to think of that. Think of what you had just read. And I think it's a great word for us as kids ministry leaders. I know we're going 1,000 miles an hour, and we just need to pause every now and then. And so you could break it down with the letters SELAH, first to just stop, and then to exhale, and to lean in, to ask, and then to hear. I think it's a great way to slow down, to pray, and to just stop from the busy of ministry and remember to be still and to know God.
I mean, that's so good. It's so hard to do, though, isn't it, Corey? Because we just get so busy, and we get so busy doing good things that you're right. If we don't stop and pause, we can miss the best things. I love that. That's a great favorite thing. Selah. Or is it Selah?
I don't know. Today we'll be hearing from George Ferrell. You might not know George, but he's one of the active members on the I Love Kidmin Facebook group, and he's the family pastor at Boiling Springs First Baptist Church. You may have seen his post where he's talking about being a mentor at a local elementary school. And George is stepping into his community, and he's sharing the love of Jesus with any of the kids that God brings his way. So let's dive in. I'm joined today with George Ferrell. George, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Well, good to be talking with you today, Corey. My name is George Ferrell. I am the family pastor at Boiling Springs First Baptist Church in Boiling Springs, South Carolina. If you have no clue where that is, we're near Spartanburg in the beautiful upstate of South Carolina. And I am a husband of my beautiful bride, Angie. We have been married for over 30 years now.
30 years. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we have known each other since fourth grade. And yeah, so I actually proposed to her when we were juniors in high school. And I don't recommend that whatsoever. But we have two adult children. Our daughter's 28. She's been married a little over a year and is expecting our first grandchild.
Wow.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you. And that will be a girl. And I am honored that they are naming her Georgia after me. So, and then we have a 24-year-old son who is soon to be engaged. So, oh, wait a minute. Well, she probably won't hear this, so that's okay. That's all right.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell me about your church. How long have you been there? What do you love about it?
Oh, wow. So I have been a vocational pastor for 28 years, but I have been at this church for 7.5 years. We came here after a bad situation where I pastored a smaller church in another part of the state, and God brought us here. We serve, our senior pastor is Hank Williams, and yes, it's worth a chuckle, but no relation there. But I have to say, this has probably in my 28 years of ministry has been the most fruitful, the most satisfying of all of the time I've been in ministry. And my role here has been with children. So it has been phenomenal. I love the ability to minister and serve.
It is so great to hear someone that's doing what God's called them to and excited about it, in their sweet spot and seeing fruit. Now, George, you posted on the I Love Kidmin group. It's been a couple weeks now, but it really caught our eye. We love the post where you talk about being a mentor and you're in the local elementary school.
Yes.
And you're serving people outside of your church. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I tell you, Corey, I would love to take credit for that whole program, but I cannot. So we actually had there's a nonprofit in our area, and they reached out to our church and asked us to be involved in that. And I felt like, since I am a children's pastor, since I work with kids, man, this would be a great opportunity for me to get to know administrators in our local elementary schools, to show them that my passion is for children. My passion is to help not only the kids, but also help the schools as much as I can. And so it's been an amazing experience for me getting to do this. So I go in to be a mentor for this second grader. I've been his mentor all year, and I actually leave every Tuesday being more blessed by being with him. It's just been an amazing thing, and I'm glad that God has allowed me the opportunity to do it. So it's just a really neat program that I'm involved in.
Man, that sounds so cool, that you're able to leave the office and do ministry, follow that calling. And props to the school for allowing you in, and that you're able to do what God's called you to do. Now, tell me what it looks like. Like, average day you're going in and you're talking with them. What is that?
Oh, wow. So, and the cool thing about it is it's ministry, right? So, for those of us who feel like our ministry is in the office during the week, that is not the case, man. Our ministry is to try to get involved in kids in our communities. So I'll go to the school. Of course, security, I have to ring the buzzer. The lady always, which you'd think she would know why I'm there now, but she always asks, why I'm there. I tell her I'm here to have lunch with Jackson, and I go in. They've got me in the computer system. I punch in. Now I know where the cafeteria. Well, most days I remember where the cafeteria is. So the schools are a maze, man. It's crazy.
For real.
But I always get there maybe 5 minutes before his lunchtime. So I just go into the cafeteria and just kind of hang out there for a few minutes. I see kids who are, who come to my church. So I speak to them. We have members of our church who are teachers, so I get to talk to them. But my purpose there is to wait for Jackson. And so I look as the second graders start coming in, and I start looking for him. And every time he sees me, he just grins, man. It's so awesome to see that reaction from him. And so I jump in the line with him. Every week I ask him, I'm like, yo, dude, what's good to eat today? And so he'll tell me, these are the choices, blah, blah, blah. And what's really neat is I've been able to kind of get to know some of the other kids in his class as well. And then we don't sit with the class to eat. They actually have a table that's separate from everybody else. And so that's where we sit. And when the teachers do the hand clap thing and make everybody be quiet, we are still able to talk and communicate. So it's kind of cool. This particular second grader, his dad just got out of prison because he, quote unquote, accidentally shot and killed Jackson's mom.
So hard.
Yeah, it's tough. So going in, I was prepped on the situation, and I'm constantly thinking, okay, how am I going to respond if he talks about it? But he's never talked about it to me. He bounces back and forth between his two grandmothers who take care of him. And so it's always a real upbeat, fun conversation about what's going on in his life, all of that. So that's kind of a typical thing. And
that sounds great.
Yeah, it's not scripted. We just kind of go with what the day has.
Yeah, no, George, you mentioned that you're leaving that barrier to ministry, your desk, and going and
Yes.
doing it. So, what advice do you have for us kids pastors to break free from that, to follow our calling? If it's in the school, great, or if it's somewhere else that God's laid a passion on our hearts to follow that, just what would you challenge us in?
Wow. Corey, I have to say, you just have to do it. It is this is what God has called us to. And whether it's doing what I do and mentoring kids in the school, or if it's something else in the community, I think sometimes we feel like if we're not in the office, 80 or 90 hours a week, we're not doing our job. But man, to me, this is I would say the icing on the cake of what God has called me to do. And it's on my calendar. I get a reminder every Tuesday. My assistant, even days when she's been sick and not in the office, she texts me, do not forget your appointment with Jackson. My wife puts it on our calendar at home. It is a very intentional appointment that I have every week. And so my challenge to you, Kidmin folks, is whatever it is that God is challenging to you, I want to challenge you and encourage you to do it. If you need to have a talk with your pastor to give explanation or whatever, I say do it, man. Don't be scared. Do it, because I don't know what kind of impact I'm having on Jackson's life, but I am getting the opportunity to talk to him about Jesus. I'm getting to speak into his life some truth, some encouragement, and I don't know. I may not ever see until eternity the impact, and that's the same for you. You don't know, until you do it. Jump out there, man. I think we need to jump out of the boat and get in the deep water with Jesus and just do what he's calling us to do. So that's it. You just got to do it. Just got to do it.
Hey, thank you, George. Wow. Love hearing how you are breaking free from the biggest barrier, and that is the desk. And I'm telling you, Corey, podcast listeners, we'd all be better off if we would just step away from our desk and just follow whatever God is calling us to in our lives. That is so rich.
And I loved how being a mentor was just such a blessing to not only Jackson, but to George himself. And isn't it amazing how often we go into things because we want to help somebody else, but in that process, we ourselves are blessed. I love that.
So here's today's challenge. Okay, what is the Lord calling you to do? Hey, Corey and I would love to hear your stories. And we're not the only ones that would love to hear your stories. Everyone else in the I Love Kidmin Facebook group would be encouraged by your story. So share with us one thing that you're doing outside of the church to share the love of Jesus. So think outside of your normal service times, outside of the walls of your church, and do this right now while it's fresh on your brain. Go to the I Love Kidmin Facebook group, unless you're driving. If you're driving, wait till you get parked. Post them now. Go to I Love Kidmin. Let's celebrate together how this community is sharing God's love outside the doors of the church. I can't wait to read your stories.
This episode might be over, but the conversation is just getting started. Head over to the I Love Kidmin Facebook group and let's talk about your next steps in your kids' ministry journey.